Welcome to KYNDversation, a space for sacred dialogue, honest reflection, and deep listening. I'm your host, Kendra Frazier. KYNDversation was born from my own inner dialogue, my journey of spirituality through life's unfoldings, questions, and becoming. Along the way, I discovered something essential, that transformation often happens not in isolation, but in conversation. In this podcast, I sit with people from diverse faith traditions, spiritual paths, and lived experiences to explore one central question. What does devotion mean to you? And how does your relationship to the sacred shape your life? My hope is that each conversation becomes a light post for those who feel challenged, disconnected, or searching for belonging. And that through our shared reflection, you might find courage, clarity, and deeper connection to yourself. Wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. Greetings and welcome to KYNDversation, where every conversation is a sacred practice. And together we explore the stories, questions, and wisdom that awaken the soul and invite us into who we're becoming. In this space, we believe that the deeper we know ourselves, the more we fully know the divine. I have the opportunity to be your host. My name is Kendra with a Y, not with an E. So let's have a KYNDversation. Today, my guest is Raheem Kashon, whom I've known for over 20 years. We met on the campus of North Carolina A&T State University. He is a mental health professional and thought partner whose work lives at the intersection of psychology, spiritual formation, and cultural reflection. With a background that includes behavioral health and clinical support work, he brings both clinical insight and lived awareness to conversations about emotional healing, identity, and growth. Raheem is especially passionate about exploring how spiritual frameworks shape mental health and how unresolved wounds, family systems, attachment, injuries, church hurt, and parentification impact the inner lives of folks of marginalized communities. His approach is reflective, compassionate, and intellectually curious, blending psychological depth about faith, blending psychological depth with spiritual nuance. Raheem ponders themes of spiritual growth, esotericism, Christian pluralism, and psychological principles. He creates space for thoughtful dialogue about faith beyond dogma, emotional literacy, the integration of shadow and self, and the healing of religious trauma. His work invites listeners to wrestle honestly with doubt, meaning, autonomy, and transcendence, encouraging a faith that is expansive rather than rigid, and a mental health journey that honors both indigenous wisdom, science, and spiritual practice and ritual. Please help me welcome Raheem.
Hey, how you doing?
I am good. It's good to see you. How are you?
It is good to see you. I am in the throes at this particular moment in my life, but it's really allowing some really beautiful things to come through. I'm seeing the ways that I'm supported. I'm seeing the ways that I'm like loved. And I'm just seeing like the ways that my community like actually wants to support me. So sometimes I feel like my personal philosophy is that we go through some of these vicissitudes in life so that we can actually see the support that we have. Like, I really feel like that's sometimes the point of it. Like, and so, that's been the beautiful silver lining. But it's been, I say this all the time, and jokingly, I said June didn't win, but she came in with some hands. She win, but she came in with some hands, baby. June was
hot.
June was hot. She came in hot. I was like, oh wait. Yes, but I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Good. I'm glad June did not win, and you are able to experience love and support in the midst of being in the throes of things. Because certainly I feel like that's what it feels like out in the world, and that is certainly, I can resonate with that as well. When I think about our friendship over the past 20 years and your spiritual journey, I am always inspired to remember who you were, who you are now, who you continue to become. When you reflect on your spiritual journey, Raheem, what are the moments, 2 to 3 moments that come to mind for you that have been certainly pivotal in where you are now in your spiritual journey?
You mean since I met you, or kind of like just in general?
Just in general.
Okay. 10th grade, I met a teacher. Her name is Storm Foreman. And she was the first person to introduce me to Ashra Kwesi and like commission information and esoteric information and Naeem Akbar and like all of these people, right? Amos Wilson and all of these authors and writers that I had learned, like I just learned to fall in love with. And like, I just remember having these like moments of being like, wow, like this is a possible perspective, right? Like you can think this, you can say this, you know, like, and so from there, that was my 10th grade year. Yeah, 10th going into 11th grade year. So then from there, I had an experience in, let me see. So let me fast track. I say, when I went to Ghana, I had an experience where I had gone up to the Volta region where the Ewe people live. And I did not know that they were doing some ceremony. I didn't know what it was. I just was going with a friend who was an Ewe. He was from that place, and it was like this group of people, but they were surrounded by mountains. Beautiful place. So they had come to this place, and they come to this place, I guess, every year to do this ritual or do the ceremony. So I'm there, and they gave me something to drink, and they were just like, it was kind of like they didn't explain it well. Anyway, it was like something like ayahuasca.
Wide open. You like
that was why I was wide open. And I just remember in that experience just feeling like that I was like almost like this kind of like this source of light, and I could like just see it, just like emanating and touching other, you know, things on the mountains, and just like, you know, and I just was like, wow, like that was a very pivotal moment in feeling like that I am really more than this body. Like my existence is really much more than this body. This body is just like a conduit for it all, right? It's like a place where it all could be experienced. And so that was a very, very pivotal moment for me. I left feeling like you should have told me that. I told my friend, I was like, I feel like you should have told me that we was taking something, but beautiful experience, you know.
Thank God it was a beautiful experience.
It was right, because that could have been crazy. Like I was like, what? So then when we talked about it, like he explained what it was, and this is vine that they like put together. So like I said, when I started to do ayahuasca later on in my life, I was reminded of that experience at that time, you know. And so I think a third one, if I could think of a third one, would possibly be when I probably started doing ayahuasca. I had this one experience where my first experience with grandmother, sitting with grandmother, this thing came to sit on me almost like an orb or something like that, just to kind of say it, you know. But it was like almost like outlined like Christmas lights, but it was just like a structure. It came and sat on me like almost like it was empowering me or disempowering something, right? And I just heard this like it was almost like just something cutting on. You know how sometimes you cut something on, you can hear it before you see it. You can hear like this like little sound. So it's more like that. So anyway, through the experience, I found out that it was the spirit of my grandmother. And in this experience, these like almost like pea pods were like in this kind of like, it was like a nest, like a wren's nest or something like that. But it was shaped like it was shaped like an oval, you know. Or like this. And so when I started, like, I guess when this experience was going on, it was almost like I had something on my hands that they needed, and I was just kind of like doing this thing, and it was like something all this was, of course, was visualization, and something was coming off my hands, and they were sucking it up like they needed it. And so then I started having this experience where these lights were coming into me, and I just intuitively knew that they were like people in my family, cousins who I had not talked to for years. No beef, but we just, you know, they may have been like 10 or 15 years older than me, like, and we just didn't grow up together, but every time we see each other's love, but I just never talked to them. So my cousin Mika, my cousin Tiffany, my cousin Damien, my sister, my brother, all of their lights started coming to me. And I remember saying, like, nobody's taking care of my baby. So now I feel like I'm mounted by the spirit of my grandmother. So I start speaking some language that I don't understand, and I start doing like all of this like work. And then shortly after that, I went through an illness. But what happened in that illness was that my cousin Mika, who had come to me in that experience, called me one night randomly. It was like, Raheem, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how you're doing. I don't know. But she said, I just had this dream that grandma and these angels had brought you out of like a hospital room, and they told me he's gonna be okay. Wow. And it's just like, and so at the time I didn't know. I was like, okay, like I didn't know. Then when I went through this experience, and I was like, okay, like so that was one experience that I'm like, yo, we are connected to an energy system that is actually quite like interesting. Because I was like, for that experience to happen, for me to be monitored by my grandmother, for her to like do all this work, and for Mika to come to me, like she came to me like as one of those lights. And I remember I just went, okay, that's Mika. And again, they would come and I just would know who they are. I'm like, that's Tip. You know,
now were these deceased relatives or
no, they still live.
Relatives that are still present.
They're still and grandmother, I guess grandma was saying that nobody's like taking care of them. So I needed to give them something through this experience. I needed to offer something to them. And so whatever this was that I was doing, I was offering what she could offer to them.
Gotcha.
That was not mine to offer, right? But I was like, she was like using me to do the work, right? And so for them, Mika to then call me and be like, I don't know what's happening, but she was like, it felt so real. And again, Mika and I love each other. Every time we see each other is love, but we don't talk because she's so much older than me. So for her to just randomly call me, I don't think I had ever talked to Mika on the phone until that experience.
Wow.
Because we always see each other in person, you know what I'm saying, in family reunions, and we, you know. And so she called, but the experience was that indelible to her that she had to call me. She's like, I had to get your number, I had to let you know about this dream. And so then I went through the illness and got through that. But it was like, looking back, it was like, wow, like this is crazy that like we're able to access energy in that way. Well, not crazy, but it's divine. It's very divine that we're able to access energy in that way and be pulled on. Like when we allow ourselves to be used and we allow ourselves to be of access, it will access us. And so that was one experience that really let me, that like pivoted me. I'm like, oh, okay. So that really ramped up my ritual practice. It really ramped up it helped me to like really get into like understanding that like I can affect my experience when I get into a practice, when I stay in a practice. So yeah.
Wow. It's taken everything in me not to run around the room. I know the period of illness that you
My God, today.
The fact that you were already prepared before you went in with the knowingness that you were going to come out.
Ain't that good?
What?
And let me tell you one more part of that story, Kendra.
Yes.
So broke my leg. Like the day I broke my leg, my friend's girlfriend at the time, his girlfriend woke him up in the middle of the night and was like, "How is Raheem?" She was like, Yemen Ya. She said, I just had this dream that Yemen Ya was sitting at the foot of his bed, like a hospital bed. I was in the hospital at the time. So he texts me like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" So I tell him what's going on. He was like, "Oh, okay, boom. She just had this dream. Yemen Ya says you're gonna be all right. This is what you need to do. This is the ritual you need to do whenever you get well, blah, blah, blah." But like even that, I'm like, that is like mind blowing to me that she and I aren't even friends. Like we're friends now, but at the time we weren't even friends like that. She had this dream that Yemen Ya was sitting at the foot of a hospital bed and was like, he gonna be all right.
Wow.
And I was like, you know, that like it's stuff, you know, experiences like that have really again just like invited me into this knowing that we are so much more in it, like we have so much more influence on our experience than we've been taught. We have really been robbed of the knowledge of how to actually get into that work and do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How to get into that work and really do it. In service of a lot of systems that want to continue to manage and control us, right? But it's like those experiences really, really showed me that like, nah, you got some power. You're working with some power here. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for telling that part of the story. You got the Orisha showing up for you, the mother showing up for you.
Yes.
And I really value your willingness to be available to the experiences, because oftentimes for those of us that grow up in Christian traditional households, it can feel scary to make ourselves available to other sources and pathways of becoming that are really in alignment with our highest good. So talk to me about, especially with you being a pastor's kid, talk to me about what you had to unlearn to be available to all that you've been experiencing.
You know, one of the biggest things is that we inherit a lot of this stuff. Like I had to really separate myself from this like idea that's really baked deeply into a lot of religious philosophies that it's the truth, right? So that was one of the first things I had to do was like, this is a possible story, right? Now, when I was young, when I first started deconstructing, I was like, F all this Christian stuff, like, I've since come back to some kind of like, this is a possible
story. That's how most of us are, I feel like,
yeah. We come back to be like, okay, well, what's the meat here? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But so that was one of the first things. I had to separate myself from this this like kind of like suggested idea that it's the truth. And then I had to be comfortable with the fact that I am a questioner. Like I am going to ask the questions, and questions for me have always allowed me to lose an illusion. Like I never felt like I was losing anything. Like when I would ask a question, I would come up with a different answer. It always felt like, okay, well, I'm losing an illusion. Like I'm learning something new, right? I didn't feel like that my Jesus was being taken away from me. I just felt like, well, maybe this is a new Jesus to learn, or maybe this is like, I feel like that my way of being sometimes can be more like new information allows me to enlarge in my sense of a thing versus like trying to hold on to this constricted concept, like sense of it. And so that, and I feel like that is a little bit more like natural, like just how I can be in the world. Because it can still be a relationship, but it could be a relationship with this component of it, right? It can still be romantic, but we cannot have sex, right? It could So for me, it doesn't have to fit in this really neat box for it to achieve the construct that I've been taught that it is, right? And so I think that that's also a huge part of why I'm able to be available, as you put it. I like the way you put that. And I feel like that I had to unlearn the idea that is disrespectful to God, or that a lot of the authorship that has been placed onto God is really man and social constructionists and people who sometimes meant well, right? Sometimes they didn't mean so well, but a lot of times they will pass on authorship to God in order to validate it, in order to, to make it more easily digestible, or for us to like accept it a lot easier. But a lot of stuff I had to be like, no, man wrote this. Don't mean that he wasn't inspired. Don't mean that he wasn't connected to source. Doesn't mean, but it may be a story for a specific iteration, for a specific time, for a specific dispensation. And it doesn't mean that I have to have any relationship with this. I don't have to bring this on. I don't have to believe this. It could actually have been truth in that time for those people. It's not resonating with me. And I had to start to really give myself permission to believe in my authority to say that it ain't working for me.
That's good.
And really give myself permission to say that, like, I have what I need in order to determine whether or not this is working for me, right? Because sometimes when you do that, people frame it as like you just undisciplined, you're unteachable, you just want to do what you want to do, you're undiscipled, and all of these things.
That's the hard.
That's the hard. But the people are saying, it doesn't mean, and there may be some places where that is true, right? That like, yes, I may need to look deeper into like, well, maybe I am being resistant because I just don't want to do that. I don't want to be discipled in that way. Gotcha. But there's a lot of times where I've had to like really rest in my knowing that like this don't resonate with me, and give myself permission and really believe in my authority to make that decision for myself.
That's strong. That is strong. Give myself permission to own my personal authority. I really value the release of ultimate truth, because I think that's where so many humans get caught up, especially when we have inherited beliefs that is really comfortable to stay within, and to open ourselves up to not being certain. Open ourselves up to another possibility, which is really strong. I want to go back to something that you said as one of your moments, which is your beginning to use plant medicine to make yourself even more available to how the spirit world is engaging with you. Talk to me about your journey, your experience with plant medicine, and why it has become a spiritual practice for you.
It started as I wanted, I felt like talk therapy. I had been doing it for a while, and I felt like I had reached a point where it just was not that useful to me anymore. Like it had done the work that it was called to do in that particular moment in my life. So it started out with like looking for something that I could go deeper with, right? And so I actually was not even interested in ayahuasca. It was my friend Juice that turned me on to it. He was like, yo, that's a Black community in Atlanta that does blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, word? So he was like, yeah. He was like, we both were having our trepidations around like, we want to let everybody know where we at. We don't want to go too far on the trip. We don't want to not be able to come, So we both, like you said, being raised in Christian traditions, but being open to the different ways that spirit can be accessed. We were open, but we had our fears, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, we both, was like, I would feel comfortable to do it if you're there, vice versa. So I got there to the experience and was texting on everybody. If I don't call y'all by 12 o'clock tonight, you know what I'm saying? Come find me. I'm at this address, And so for me, it started out as that. And then when I had that first experience, it began to be like that experience that I had in Ghana, where it's like, oh, this really allows me. It's almost like it tunes my radio frequency to like to be able to receive information that's already there. It's just that I need a little help getting to the frequency where I can actually access it. And so that's why it has become such a pivotal part of my practice nowadays. Is because it's like there are certain things that like I can know or that I can think. But I feel like that, plant medicine softens the edges of the psyche. Sometimes it can let things through that in this state of my mind, my brain would block off because I don't want to deal with it, don't want to think about it, don't want to engage it. And so I feel like that it's a way for me to continue to do deeper healing work, to allow those beliefs, to allow those thoughts to come up, and for me to like begin to do work that I need to do with them, right? So it's become a huge part of like how I get into a position of being ready to receive, a position of being ready to let it through, right? So how I posture myself to be ready to receive. So that's why it's become so important.
I love that. I engage in psilocybin as a sacred practice. So I've always been interested in ayahuasca. So I'm glad to hear you name how it softens the edges of your psyche to let things come through, because we can be as human beings so stuck in our minds. It's hard to, as you've named, tune in to the right frequency to hear, to see even more.
Right. Because, in this state of mind, like I'm thinking about how am I going to pay my rent? I got into a car accident. Is my child okay? Like, and so these are real human concerns, right? But plant medicine allows some of that noise to go away and allows some of the white noise to come up to the forefront. So now I'm not thinking about the safety of my child. If I am, I'm able to really get in tune with the sensation that's in my body. I'm able to feel like literally where it is in my body. It may feel more intense for a while, which is a part of why some people shy away from it, because it can intensify it because a lot of those things are psychological intensifiers, right? But then what tends to happen is that once it intensifies it and it troubles it to bring it up, then there's a period of like, well, how can, like, let me let the emotion through. So then you might cry, you might get angry, you might, purge in other ways, right? But you really get to get with the experience. You really get to be present to the experience, that like this thought that I'm having is causing this emotion that's showing up in my body in this way, and it's related to this thing, and I can just let the emotion through. The first time I did I sat with grandmother ayahuasca, Kendra, I wailed. I cried for probably had to be like 6 or 7 minutes. Wow. Like unstopped, like a child, like wailing. And I remember me and my brother were going through a kind of hard, rough patch in our relationship. And I just remember how much I love him. And I was just so I was so aware of how much I love him. And it was just like all of that other shit that we was going through it was like I could just feel the love that I felt for him. And it's like I wailed and wailed and wailed. And then there were other things that came up to me that even making me emotional to remember it now. It's like I just remember being like, the feeling that I have for these people, it just felt, I was just so aware of it. And not in the way that I'm aware of it in my conscious mind. It's like, oh, I know I love you. And, but it was like, I got to feel that I fucking love you. And I got to feel it. And I got to, and so all of that noise about like everything else in my life, because I was going through a hard time in my life, even at that time. But all of that stuff kind of just went to the background. And what came to the foreground were like these subconscious beliefs, these things that I know, but I don't always allow myself to feel. Gotcha. And so that was really, so then that's also another reason why I use plant medicine as a sacred practice, because I'm such a thinker. I'm so in my head. I can analyze almost anything. It's a gift, right? And so sometimes that gets in the way of me just being like, this hurts. Like, and I can say that, I can know that, but like, no, let it hurt. Let it hurt. You know what I mean? Like, be with it. Or this feels good. I'm having fun, but it's in my head. Like I'm having fun versus like, no, I'm having fun, Gotcha. And so I think that I know that plant medicine allows me to, again, like we're both saying, tune into those frequencies, tune that radio up a little bit. Like, okay, boom, let's cut this down. Let's cut this up and let's get into this and do some work around it.
And I would name, and I don't know if you would agree with this, I would name any engagement with plant medicine as a sacred practice as ritual. Mentioned as you mentioned these moments that you had, that they brought you into practicing ritual more consistently. And I'm also thinking about my own work, looking at how divinatory knowledge can be an organizational type of assessment to inform how we design organizational rituals within institutions. And so, and I'm also thinking about Malidoma Somai's work, where he talks about in the Healing Wisdom of Africa, how ritual is to disrupt how we are enculturated by the Western world. For you, what does ritual mean for you?
That's a really good question. I'd say first of all, ritual how shall I say this? Let me ritual for me is about it's just another part of that conversation of being available. It's allowing yourself to hollow out of space and to do a thing that unlocks certain parts of your body, gives you certain access to certain whatever, that signals to whatever it is that you're trying to do, that I'm available now. Like, I'm readying to be available. I'm readying to be of service. I'm readying to hear. I'm readying to see, And so I feel like that ritual is almost like, it's almost like opening the door. Right. I told Kendra to come to my house. You coming to see me. Gotcha. Right. I feel like that's, I feel like that's like religion and, but I feel like ritual is like, okay, you're here now. Let me open up the door. Right. Let me welcome you in. So, and I feel like that. So then it's like ritual also is very individualistic, whereas religion and a lot of spiritual practice can be like a little bit more lay. It can be a little bit more cultural just for everybody. But ritual is like very, like, what do you need? You need to go get some sassafras. I may need to go get some hyssop. I may need to go get some beauty berries, because that's what is for me. But your ritual to do the same thing, let's say that we're trying to sweeten the communication in our relationship. You may need to go get something specific to who you're dealing with, who you are, what y'all dealing with in particular. I may need to go get something that's so ritual also brings it from the social general, and it kind of whittles it down to the individual. Absolutely. What does Kendra need? What does Raheem need? Right? Because we can do although I feel like in the same way we can do group rituals, right? Some people say that communion is a ritual, right? But I feel like that any way that ritual is used to specify, is used to really get clear about like who it is that I'm trying to talk to. Because if we're doing communion, we're trying to commune with Jesus, right? Absolutely. Like we're getting very specific about who it is that we're trying to get to and what we're trying to do. You know what I'm saying? So I think the ritual allows us to kind of like, start to distill, if you will, and distill the energy and get clear about who are we trying to talk to? What are we really trying to do? And what do I need to do this communication work and bring this in,
You stated so plainly, and I'm really grateful for those who are watching, those who are going to be listening, who aren't familiar with ritual, just to know that ritual is about opening the door. It's about inviting yourself into more of the sacred. It's about understanding what prescription is specifically yours. I'm glad you mentioned that, because just because you see somebody outside dropping honey in a body
that ain't what you
water,
did.
and you don't know what the hell they dropping some honey in a body of water, but you gonna go take your tail out there and go do it too, but you don't get the same results, and you pondering why you not get the same result, because that ritual was not for you at that particular time.
That's real. That's
Yeah.
real. And I will add this: if you are in tune, you are listening to yourself, and the Spirit says this is a ritual for you, right? Then, but like then I would suggest I would get curious. Let me say it. I ain't gonna suggest nothing on it, but I would get curious. But I feel like sometimes too, like, you know, especially when we're like doing deconstructionistic work, and it's like it can be so pretty, and they're out at the river and they got on their nice little outfits and their hair is wrapped, and it's like, I want to do that. That looks nice. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I caught myself in that place too. Like, wow, like I think that it just looks pretty, right? And it's like, and I feel myself drawn to it for certain, you know, reasons, and I have like adopted ritual from people, right?
Yeah.
So so I would say, but just listen to your spirit. If spirit is saying this is pretty, this is nice, like this is you know, aspirational stuff, let it live in that world. And like you said, I would definitely be cautious of adopting, especially like piece for piece rituals that people are doing for themselves. Yes. If you're not really in tune with what you want to do, because I've taken rituals from people and they're like, oh, I feel like I need to put some water right here. I feel like I need to omit the lemon rinds. Like I feel like because I'm like, I don't know, that don't resonate with me, right? So then I can customize it. I'm listening to the Spirit, and I get in there, and it may be something like this. Somebody recommends that I do, you know, I use lemon, and I go to 7 stores and I can't find no damn lemons. That might be an indication that Spirit is like, that you might not need to be using that part of the ritual. Or it could be an indication of that, like you need to search more, like you need to go get these lemons, right? But it's about being in tune with your, like, so you doing your inner work, your embodied and somatic work. What is it saying to you? Is it saying continue to search for these lemons, or is it saying that I don't need this part of the ritual, right? And so I have learned to really be with like the parts of me that are human, the parts of me that like the aesthetics, the part of me that likes because I'm artistic, the art of ritual, because, you know, seeing like candles burn and other things, the wax, and like it's artistic to me. I'm drawn to some of it as art, you know, but it's like also too, am I being led to do this? Is this for me? You know, so yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, thank you for being even more explicit about that. And I think your alignment with your personal authority helps you really get clear about what you need to curate for yourself. And I sit with people all the time who have experienced spiritual abuse or religious trauma because they weren't discerning enough or hadn't aligned with their personal authority enough to say, this is not for me. So when it comes to the work that you do with people around religious trauma, what drew you to that work, and what are the themes that you generally hear as you work with people who have experienced spiritual abuse or religious trauma?
What has drawn me to it is, I just feel like having experienced my own religious trauma, right? It's just like, and having a personality where, like you said, I'm willing to ask questions, even when I'm like, you know, shunned, or, you know, like it doesn't push me back in line. That's just not my personality. It makes me rebel even more. Like, oh, you know what I'm saying? You gonna say you'll fuck with me because I'm asking questions? Okay, well, I'm good on that. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that I know that I've always wanted to give people permission to do that, because I think that even when I was in college, the way that I dressed and did and expressed myself, there was multiple people in my life who come to me in college and after college said, Raheem, you gave me permission to do things that I thought that I wanted to do, right? The way that you dress and the way that you are and the way that you're able to take risk, and even if it don't look good to me, even if I don't like it, the fact that you were willing to do it, the fact that you have the courage to do it gave me the courage to do something that I had been thinking about trying. And so I feel like that is also a part of my gifting on this planet, is that I'm willing to take the hit. I have what it takes to take the hit. So then now y'all come on, right? I can blaze the trail. Doesn't mean that I don't get weary sometimes and I want to go back and be with y'all like, let me just hide behind, let me duck these hits. But I have a little bit more of a willingness because of the way my personality structure is set up to take the hit, to not take it personal, to not be like, well, oh, this lady said this to me in church and I ain't never going back to that fucking church. I'll go back. You say whatever you want to say. I'm still gonna live my life the way I'm gonna live my life. Like, are you gonna fight me? Like, I don't know. You said what you had to say, and I can even, and I think that also being analytical helps me to make space for other people's perspective. I can even probably see why you say that, and I can see why you may have tried to warn me for that. Specifically, the way that my life has gone, there were certain things that people were afraid that I would experience that I actually experienced. So I get why they would say some of the things that they said, right? Because there are certain things you can open up yourself to when you're not living your life in a certain way. Now, being not saying that is a truth, it is not the truth, right? And so we can hold space for it. So doing religious trauma work has been a way that I've been able to offer and allow people that space to ask questions. Mm-hmm. I had a client the other day that was dealing with so much stuff around sexuality and what they really liked, and a lot of it was rooted in the idea that men shouldn't like this. You came from this religious tradition. We shouldn't like this. We shouldn't do this. And just my posture, he told me, he was like, yo, like the way you're just talking about it makes me feel safe to just say it. So I said, well, let's just say it. What is it? And then as he started to say it, I'm validating, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, like I know multiple people that like that. I know multiple men who like that. I know multiple, you know what I'm saying? And so being able to be a safe space for people to ask these questions, to say these things, that makes me feel good. That makes me feel like I'm doing the work that I'm called to do. And so, then to answer the second part of the question, that's one thing that I come up to a lot is this people's experience with sexuality, people's experience with desire and pleasure. Like people's, somebody may like their toes licked and they got trauma around it because I don't know, one day they were playing with their toes, or they let the dog lick their toes, and their mom's like, don't let that damn dog lick your toes. And it's like, well, I like that. I enjoy that, right? So then now I got some trauma and shame around something that I like, and I can't share that with my partner, that I like my toes licked, because women ain't supposed to do that. You ain't supposed to let no man lick your toes because you're supposed to be virtuous. Like, so then all these ideas become weaponized, and they become a way to, they become these things that people use to chastise us in line. You're not virtuous if you like your ass ate. Yeah. Why can't I be? I absolutely am. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I absolutely am. And I like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I find joy in doing, is like just having people come into the practice and be like, just say the thing you like. What do you like? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And then verbalize it. Or if you can't verbalize it right now, write it down. And then in the next session, come ready to say it. And you'll see them nervous and like, well, sometimes and I'm like, I get them in space because I know it's hard to say. It's hard to say something like, I experience anal pleasure as a man, but I only want to experience that with women. Yeah. I don't like men. I don't want to have sex with men, but I love anal pleasure. Mm-hmm. I love anal pleasure more than I like vaginal pleasure.
That's good.
That's something hard for a man to say, but it's like you can come here, you can say that. And we can deal with whatever whatever terms, whatever identities that have been put onto you and conferred to you that makes it harder for you to just own that I have this desire, it feels good and I want it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that you create spaciousness and hospitality for people to be exactly who they are, because so many people are caught up in their sexuality, no matter what orientation they identify as. But when it comes to experiencing pleasure, I think most humans need work around being available to pleasure, especially because of the hypersexualized world that we live in. And so, and I know for me, my sexuality, my journey into being a same gender level woman, a queer woman, has certainly informed my spirituality and vice versa. So I'm wondering for you, how has your sexuality informed your spirituality, and your spirituality informed your sexuality?
I think that existing in a lot of ways that are read as marginal has allowed me to like not ever feel like that I'm actually really deeply seated in any of these identities. So then it's like it's rendered me more willing than I probably would be. Like, let's say that I was a strictly female attracted man.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I still will be willing to question certain things, but I don't know if I'll be willing to go as far. Being queer in that way, and in so many different ways, right, has allowed me in my life to be comfortable with not having lost anything that I didn't feel like I owned in the first place.
Mm.
Like, I didn't feel like I owned heterosexuality. I didn't feel like I owned like this like performance of Black masculinity. I didn't feel like I owned any of those things. So there was those things, I didn't have to lose them. So I was more willing as a queer man in so many different ways to ask questions because I'm not losing any of that. I might be losing friendship, right? I might be losing connection, right? And that's a risk to take. And that may also, that has definitely informed how willing I am to verbalize what I'm thinking about sometimes, the conclusions that I'm coming to at times. But I think that being queer has just allowed me to be in a specific place in this society and in these societies where I don't feel like I'm losing as much. So I'm more willing to ask, well, if God said thou shalt not kill, but then God commanded the Israelites to kill, then is God critiquable? Mm-hmm. Is sexuality critiquable? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like you say that y'all say I'm gay, but I've experienced great sexual pleasure with women, right? Mm-hmm. That I felt connected to, and I felt like, so what the box or whatever the narrative that y'all are running is it's not true. It's the story that y'all. So I feel like that's what I would say around like queerness. It is just, I'll say it more like this to be succinct. I feel like being queer or being read as queer in a sexual sense has hindered me from owning identities that I think would have held me back from asking certain questions in my spiritual practice and doing certain things in my spiritual practice. It has allowed me to be free because, again, going back to I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I didn't feel like I was losing I didn't feel like I was losing the identity of being a man of valor. I never was a fucking man of valor. You know what I'm saying? Like, or if I am, I'm my specific iteration of valor, right? Like, but I'm never going to fit into the box of valor, masculine valor, because I come to this world already ready to laugh. I'm ready to queen out. Even if I was strictly attracted to females, I'd be when Beyonce come on, I'm ready. Like, what we doing, And so I existed in a lot of ways as a child that did not fit neatly into masculinity, and I was not as interested as other boys in fitting into that box.
That is beautiful. I love that, and it's such an invitation for all of us to get more free. For anybody watching that may be having questions about your sexuality, you don't know where to ask them, where to put them. This is an invitation for you to liberate yourselves, and so I really love how you lean into queerness. What does being queer mean to you?
Being queer means being willing to be the specific iteration of source energies that you're called to be on this planet. Beyond your socialization, it's being willing to lean into that quirky laugh that you have and being willing to do it, right? That can be seen as queer. I feel like that being willing to say that I exist in this world in a way that my society, whatever society we're born into, may not support, may not privilege, but I'm still willing to lean into that, right? So it can be, of course, a lot of people talk about it most commonly along the lines of sexuality, but it could be along the lines of anything, the foods that we eat, right? It could be anything that's deviant from these messages that our society has given momentum to about what's normal for us to do, what's acceptable for us to do, what's acceptable for us to be, and us leaning into that, being sensitive to that, excavating that, doing that work, and leaning into that work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And leaning into that and leaning into those parts of our being is more what I'm trying to say. So, but I do feel like that there are guards, right? Because we want to have some sense of structure, some sense of like, so it's not okay for me to just go take Kendra's stuff because I want it, right?
Right.
But like, if I'm not harming anyone, I'm not taking away from anyone, and I'm leaning into aspects of myself that I may have been socialized to not. I feel like that's what queerness is. Queerness lies in that place of being able to like say, I want to be this way because I'm this way. I laugh this way. I'm a man and I'm silly. I'm a man and I'm gossipy. I'm a man and I'm chatty. I'm a man and I'm like, because I'm chatty. The fuck? Like, it has nothing to do with. So, but being willing to lean into that, I feel like is where, queerness lies for me.
Yeah. I love that. It's a beautiful balance. I think you have a beautiful balance of masculine and feminine energy. And we all have both energies despite gender we show up as. And so I always appreciate people who can fill in the balance really beautifully. And I think that you really hold that balance well.
Thank
you.
I'm
thinking about how you named that you aren't concerned with losing anything because you hadn't ascribed to those particular labels. And so I'm wondering, outside of people that you may lose, how do you deal with the heartbreak of the loss of relationships and community because you have chosen to live into the authenticity that Source is calling you in at any given time?
I express it, right? I tell them, like that it's hurtful that we can't continue our friendship or whatever the case may be because I choose to live in this way, but I respect it, right? I think that at this juncture of my journey, it's like I really can understand why people may not like certain ways that I am in the world. Like I get it, like, and so I think that having done that work to be all right with me, that's a part of the work, right? Because now you can say to me, because you might be open to certain ideas, I feel like that's dangerous. Like I heard somebody say that they didn't want to be my friend because I was doing ayahuasca and hape, and they'd had an experience with crack and heroin, and they had gone through rehab and they had gone through had gotten themselves to the point like they don't do it anymore. They hadn't done it in years, and so talking about that stuff and seeing me do that stuff reminded them of that. So then they couldn't be in community with me and not feel the anxiety that I will be harmed or I'm doing something that could cause me to be addicted. So we don't talk anymore, and I understand that, right? Was it hurtful? Yeah, but I was able to express it. We had a conversation, and I'm able to lean back into. But Raheem, you all right with Raheem? You all right with doing ayahuasca? You all right? You know what I'm saying? And you can also understand where this person is coming from, given their trauma and history with things that they've been taught are drugs, right? And if they're not really ready to do any work around understanding that grandmother is not like heroin or psilocybin is not like cocaine, right? These things have been processed in a certain sort of way to heighten the the GABA, serotonin, all of that stuff that our brains experience. So it causes seeking behavior, which leads to the addiction. Ayahuasca, psilocybin, iboga, those things are not like that. So we're not dealing with the same things. But if you're not really ready to trouble that and enlarge your sense of what it means to do a drug, then we can't be in community. And I'm okay with it. And then I'm able to say, well, that was their time in my life, and they just got off the bus, and I'm okay with that too. So I think that I know that I've developed certain thinking that has helped me to really hold space for like just the humanity of somebody coming into my life and being like, oh, I don't quite like that, so I'm gonna roll out. And then be like, okay, let's have a conversation about it. Let me let you know how I feel about it, but help me to understand. And then once I understand, I'm like, okay, well, press your way, be blessed.
Amen, and I shape to that.
Be blessed.
I want to know, and I'm curious, given all that you've experienced spiritually, how do you identify now in terms of your spiritual identity or even religious identity?
I call myself a citizen of the world. I'd be like, I'm just a citizen of this world. When I go and chant with the Buddhists, I'm like, if it feels good, I'm gonna do it. If it don't feel good, I'm not gonna do it. When I go in fellowship with the Baha'is, when I go with the Christians, when I go with the Christians, if I go to a Muslim sect, like if I'm going to Bimbe or Kum or anything like that, you know, or Misa or anything like that. Like when it stops feeling good, I'm out of there. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that I'm a citizen of the world in the sense that like I feel like that. And one of the things that I took from the Baha'i faith is this concept of like the continual unfolding of a message to humanity. God is continuing to unfold this message and is giving different messages to different people based on where they are, what they eat, what trees what animals they have access to. They have a specific part of the message, and it goes back to like kind of like that analogy of like we all have our eyes closed and we're touching the elephant. We're touching the same elephant, but you may be touching the tail. I may be touching the trunk. And so then your account of what you're touching may be different, but we're touching the same thing. And it's only until all of these conversations and accounts come together that we can actually see the elephant.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be like it ain't got no hair on it because you touching the tail. It do, right? But it ain't got no hair on it where I'm at. And if I posture myself to be willing to bring that on and not say that it's the truth for me, but it is your truth. And it's like, well, what can I glean from this? What can I eat and what can I throw away? But if you say, oh, I'm touching something that's hairy and it's long and it's skinny, and that's the tail, and I'm like, well, no, it's thick and it's got this thing on it. It's like, and now we fighting, but we touching the same animal. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that's how I identify as just like a citizen of this world, and I'm willing to be in conversation with people so that I can continually update my conversation around what source is. I can continually learn more about what source is by learning what source is to you, who source is, and who source is as you. As I'm experiencing you, I'm experiencing the source. So if I feel like I just got it like in this box, I'm not even open to like experiencing you as source and like the divine and what do you have to teach me? What do you have to show me? And so I guess that's the question. I'm a citizen of the world.
That's perfect. And this is my last question. The name of the podcast is KYNDversation, Knowing Yourself in Need of Devotion. So what devotional practices do you have in addition to ritual and plant medicine and sacred practice?
One thing I do is I do chant. I've taken some chants from the Krishnas. I've taken some chants from the Buddhists. I do chant. I find myself making sure that I put things on my ancestor altar, on altars, right, that feel good to me. Like I feel like that somebody needs, I may ride, see myself walking by this yellow flower, and I'm like, I don't know, for some reason I just feel like this needs to be up there, So one of my devotions is to be consistently open to what needs to happen for my ancestors to like be able to communicate, be in communication with me. So I'm consistently like running my experiences through like, is this a message? Is this like something I'm having? I also am very, very big on like nature, finding myself each week somewhere in nature, doing something in nature, like finding myself in the woods, like just like, I don't know, being enamored by some plant that I've never seen, don't know what it is. That is a devotion to me because it's like, I feel like that in these modern iterations of like life and society, a lot of us can spend 95% of our time in a house, and we only going outside to walk to another building, to walk to our car, right? And I feel like that it really can posture us to forget that we're on a sentient, live, like organism, like a thing, a consciousness. And a devotion for me is continually like letting it know that I see you and I'm thankful for you and I'm grateful for you. And and even as I walk on this grass, like I'm grateful for what it feels like, and I'm grateful for the softness of it. So that's a devotion for me, like continually being in what I feel like is communication with nature, to let it know that like, as me, because I'm nature as well, but like the ways that I'm experiencing it, that I'm grateful, that I'm here, that I see you, that I, like that's a devotion for me. And just and also there's one other thing that I do, and this is very rare, but I still do it. Like I'll get into these moments where like I don't know, something will happen, and I'll find myself rocking, and I'll find myself like saying things that I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm like just letting these sounds come through, and I don't know, it can feel real worked up, and it can feel like I just need to say it, and I just say it, and I allow myself to be of service to whatever that is that's trying to speak through me. So those are devotional practices that I regularly engage myself in.
Thank you. Thank you for naming all of those. And thank you so much for being willing to have this second conversation, because we've had a conversation before, but technology has made us have it again. So I'm
Yes.
really, really grateful. I could talk to you for another couple of hours.
Yes.
And I want to thank all the people who are tuning into these conversations. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at KYNDversation, where every episode goes live every Wednesday at 5 a.m. Remember, your life is sacred, your voice matters, and your becoming is holy. Until next time, stay devoted to divine within you. Peace and abundant blessings.